January 9th, witness a love affair between a man and his meat.
Oh, Burger, you're cute. You're cute too. I'm not.
Fall in love with Bob's Burgers, opening Sunday, January 9th on Fox.
All right, here for another tech tool tip, sponsored by Discount Tire, with over 50 years of guaranteed customer satisfaction, free tire rotation, and the best service in the industry. Check them out at www.discounttire.com. Also, America's Tire. Don't forget, check them out online. Great guys over there and really, really helpful. Let's jump into this next tech tool tip, if I can say that as it easily rolls off the tongue. We're going to be working on building out a Ford 9-inch rear end for another project down the road. One of the things that is daunting most people that start this type of project is all the crazy kind of tools that you end up having to buy to do such a simple job. The Ford 9-inch is a really straightforward rear end to rebuild. I have not done one. You're going to be doing it with me, so it'll be a learn as we go kind of thing. But after looking online and reading some of the instruction sheets on how to put it together, it looks pretty straightforward with the right tools again. So we'll start off with, this is a strange engineering. It's a strange rear end, as you might say, or actually the strange dropout. This is an aluminum carrier, very heavy duty. Have one in the Ripper, have one in the Cobra. They're, 20, 30 pounds lighter than the iron ones. Good for a track car. We're going to start with that as the foundation, and we'll show some of the components we're going to use for this, then move it along to some of the tools that we need and some of the tools that you can make, which is really what it gets down to, because there's a couple of pieces of equipment that you can get away with not having, but if you have it, it's a much better build. So that's basically the dropout section. That bolts into a Ford 9-inch. It's a little different than a GM 12 bolt or some of the Dana products, but it's nice because you can work on the gears and everything fairly straightforward without having to have the whole rear end out of the car or get the car up on a hoist. So that's basically the core of the project. We have a couple of these kits from Yukon Gear and Axle, which everybody makes these things. They're bearings, gears, nuts, bolts, and gaskets, some thread locker, and a little bit of marking compound. So when we get to that phase, we can dial the gear in and make sure that the pattern that the mesh, the ring and pinion have together are correct, which is really, really important. The ring and pinion is a really precision piece in your car. Most people don't ever have to touch it. They're usually generally pretty reliable, but now and again they do break. For race cars, you want to have a couple of these if you're doing different tracks. So we're going to do one with a little different gear ratio than what's in the car now. And what we have is a nice NASCAR pull ring and pinion that is like almost brand new. These are a little different than what you'd buy off the shelf. These have been surface treated with a magical micro polishing technique that's only known to 3 people, like the formula of Coca-Cola. But it does a really good job of removing friction and keeping your gear life long, especially under high load situations like they run in NASCAR and other type of racing with that. This is the pinion, and again, this is used, but it looks almost brand new. All the surfaces are clean, smooth, and unscarred, which is important. I almost wouldn't recommend getting a used ring and pinion set just because they're not that expensive. You can get a nice one made in USA for under 200 bucks in any gear you want. I just figured, I'd get one, give it a try. If it breaks, I can rebuild it again. So the last piece that we're looking at is a Detroit True Track. And this is and I hope I got that right, because there's Detroit True Track and Detroit Locker and Detroit Track Lock and every other variant of that in between. But this one is a kind of a unique differential. It has gears instead of clutch plates or a ratcheting mechanism. The Ford 9-inch Detroit Locker, arguably the harshest rear end, but that's what you use if you just want an on-off. This gives a nice torque bias between the 2 wheels and really good for track and road racing. And we'll try it out. I've never used one. I've used mainly the clutch types in my cars. So this is a little bit of a new piece too. As we jump into this, there's a few things that you might find that you're going to need, and the tools for rebuilding a rear end are a little tricky. Some of the things that you'll start needing are these complicated, funny-looking things, which is actually just a torque wrench. And there's a couple places where you use this, and you need a low inch-pound torque wrench for setting your pinion torque, and we'll get to that when we actually rebuild it. It's an important setting as we start doing either the crush bearing, the crush collar in the pinion, or shims on it. The next one, which is probably one that you won't have unless you do a lot of rear end work, and that's where we really need Adam to jump in and throw some kind of witty comment. However, what this is a pinion depth measuring tool, and to get the rear end set up correctly, you really need to have some accurate measurements set up between the ring and pinion, or the center of the pinion, and it's difficult to get with garage type of tools. And they make a bunch of different ones. You can buy them at Summit for about 80 bucks, and they have different ways of working. This is a really high-end one and does it really nice. Sometimes you can't use these out of the start because you may not have the right measurements, but we're going to try that and see if we can use that when we actually get down to doing the gear building. And the last couple pieces are a pinion wrench. Well, when you start putting this stuff all together, the pinion has threads that you got to lock down a nut onto, and torque. The torque on these things probably in the 200+ pound range. So you need some way of holding this whole mechanism, and the yoke has to be placed on prior to torquing it down. So you're going to have some kind of a tool. Let's keep that from rolling off the bench. There we go. You're going to have some kind of a tool that we can hold this whole assembly while it's in and mounted on the pinion. So we made this one out of a piece of bar stock that was laying around the garage and an old crappy socket that threw a big ugly weld on, and net cost nothing. It was just scrap. You can buy one of these universal pinion yoke plates that will bolt on essentially any type of yoke. It has 2 holes for 3/4 and 3/4 and a half inch drive socket. So that's about 30 bucks, but you can just easily make something yourself and get creative. You don't have to spend a lot of money for some of the simpler stuff, although it's nice and it works easy. The next one is the spanner tool. 4 9-inches adjusts the backlash through the spanners on the side of the housing. And essentially the spanner is it's a tool with 2 little fingers that stick out, and you drop them in, and that's how you would adjust the positioning to just your backlash. Well, that's a $50 tool from Armstrong, and this thing's bulletproof. It's simple. You can smash it with a mallet. Get busy with it. It's not going to break. Nice forged piece. I made one in the garage out of a couple Allen bolts and some scrap steel that probably do just as great. A couple of bucks and 15-20 minutes of drilling on a drill press, and same kind of idea. Basically something that you can just twist the spanner with, and you can even make it simpler with 1 bar as long as you match the holes the right length. So lots of stuff like this you can make and not have to buy. The last piece that we're not going to show until we get a little bit busy down the road is the press. And one of the things you have to do is press on and off bearings and things like that, and we'll get to that when we get to the assembly phase. The last thing that we're going to show is, and since I plan on probably breaking this at some point, we're going to build something that we can reuse, and what that is a simple engine stand 9-inch dropout holder. And what we're going to do is build something that's really similar to the way an engine stand head works. So we're going to end up taking this piece off and kind of getting rid of it and make a plate that we can fit in here that we can essentially bolt the 9-inch dropout to and work on standing up, or mount to a bench if we had a head that was bench mountable. So that'll help us get busy faster, not have to fiddle around with this thing rolling around, because they're kind of hard to work on. The cases are kind of round. There's no easy way to grab it. So what we're going to do is basically, again, hit the online metal store and bought some standard flat plate, and we're going to just basically make a plate that does something like this. So we'll do a plate, bolt on like that. That'll be the back plate, which is very similar to the way the engine mounting plate worked. And then we're going to come up with a nice simple way with some arms. See if we can do this without dropping it on the floor and making a whole bunch of noise. Something like that. You get the idea. We'll set the diff, the dropout right underneath here, bolted on, and that'll be welded to this plate. So we'll do a little bit of welding, and we'll build the tools, and I think that'll be as far as we can go in this tech tool segment, but the main idea is what we want to do is show that you can do this yourself. If you think it out, you make a few tools, you buy a few that you need to borrow, and the rear end isn't as mysterious as you might think it is. All right, let's go do some welding, I think. Again, welding jacket and safety gear, always mandatory, so let's get that stuff going and get busy. We're at the welding bench, if you will, at the shop, and we're going to weld the two plates to the backing plate, and we threw a couple tacks on this one so it'll hold up straight. We have the arrow magnets on the back to keep it perpendicular. I'm sure we dropped something off of there. And we threw a couple tacks on the back, and now we're just going to throw down a full bead all the way across the plate, and this is, you know, probably going to be good for 10 times the weight that we'll end up putting on, but as we always tend to overbuild here at CarCast's, let's get to it, Jeff. A little bit of quirky welding here, but not bad. Machine's still not set up right, but set up good enough to hold a 4.9-inch rear end on an engine stand. And we're going to do the same for the other side. This is a little bit trickier because we need to make sure that everything still lines up. So we want to probably think about bolting this. We want to think about bolting this together with the bar in it. So A, we'll get it to smoothly rotate when we lock it down, and B, hold everything parallel. Although it doesn't look hot, it's roasting hot. And that should do it. That'll give us that'll lock it down to a point where we know where we can still articulate the arms, and the holes will line up, in fact. So we'll do something like that just to make sure. And doesn't have to be super, super tight, but enough where we can still move it, and when we clamp it down later, the force of the bolt will provide a little friction to the arms, although not really needed once it's bolted in. So let's do a little cleaning over here with this mini bike cleaning brush that was out of Donnie's area. Always a clean weld, as you can see. Throw a couple of tack welds and go. All right, let's clear those up a bit. And weld. Ready? Go. All right. Good enough for aerospace, I would say. Let's kill that. So part one looks successful. Second one, we got the welder a little bit better adjusted, but that's kind of how it's going to work out. And then now we're going to move on to the back part, which will be a little bit more tricky, but we need to mount the pipe back there, and we're done. We kind of scribed a couple of points where the center of the plate is, and we're going to do something like that. Now, one of the things that you may saw laying on the bench, and this isn't going to be easy, we're just going to throw a tack, is this really slick tool. And what it is, it's a magnet. It sticks on, has a couple of adjusters so it can clamp around pipes. It's got magnets on the bottom so it'll stick down. It also has a magnet on the side for doing plates. If you're trying to mount a plate to a tubing, this thing's like $20, and you know, really stupidly simple, slick tool that'll get us at least have a little bit of stickiness so we can throw a tack on this. And this doesn't have to be exact because it's just going in the engine stand, but trying to line it up where the pipe is right between the scribed lines, and then we'll throw this down to just hold it. So that's essentially what will be our top dead center of this plate. We'll do a little bit of cleaning here just to maybe get a good tack. Let's turn the machine back on. We got a little tack there. We'll put one on the other side so we can remove the clamp and not do it. And try and make sure that it's as flat as it can be. Things are a little bit buckled. Sorry for the loud noise there. Yeah, that should be good. Not going anywhere now. Again, a good welder would have this thing spotless. You want your stuff clean if you're really going to get a good solid weld around here. That should be it. So we'll do the half and half and then rotate the whole thing again. And hopefully we'll be done. I think that's all we got to do. A little bit uglier, but still looking not so bad. And now let's just get the back side of it. Well, that's all the bad welding I can do for one day, I think. I think we got it. Actually, it didn't come out that bad. Like I said, it's not my home welder. And not so familiar with how to set it up right, but it actually doesn't look too bad. This thing's probably about 1,000 degrees. A little bit of slag. Just sprayed some no stick on here. But there it is in all its glory. And let's pop this actually right into the engine stand. Let's take out the head and we drag this over here. And let's take the head out of the engine stand, throw that on the workbench with the rest of the stuff. And while this is still about 1,000 degrees, let's at least see if it fits in. And it looks like it's go for launch. So what we have now is a really nice workbench, the mobile work cart for the 9-inch. And I'd throw it on here, but it's probably 1,000 degrees still. I don't want to get burned while trying to put in a couple of bolts, but we'll lock these down. That'll provide a little friction to hold these tight. The 9-inch dropout section will bolt right underneath, and you'll have a nice workplace where you can get in and work on your ring and pinion settings and whatever you want to do to the thing. And like I said, this is a fairly inexpensive project. We'll use this for something else. If we need something else to mount, we can drill some more holes, change the arms. You know, as long as we have the base head for the engine stand, you can do all kinds of stuff with it. So that should wrap up this week's edition of the CarCast's Tech Tool Tip, and hopefully in the next one we'll get to actually assembling the ring and pinion into the carrier and do all the crazy magic work that you need to do to set up a rear end. And I keep thinking, man, where the hell is Adam in this? He's got 100 one-liners he can use here. Anyways, see you next week and get your projects done. See that little hole in my heavy-duty welding shoe? Some of the slag and spray from the weld went in there, and there's now a hole in my toenail. But that's the importance of wearing gloves and safety masks. Always, remember.